Ruben, then you Clay Aiken, but second place gets nothing. So get up out this godforsaken booth. The truth is you sadly mistaken. Proof I'm back.
Welcome to 3 Count Commentaries. I hesitate to make this video because it could very well not be true. But all signs seem to be pointing to CM Punk's days in AEW being over. OVER. That's what all signs are pointing to. Not necessarily that it's official yet, but people are emoting all over the internet like it is. They're very upset that it seems like CM Punk will not be coming back. This has turned the internet to a toxic, a virulently toxic place, more so than usual. Let's just talk about it. So Dave Meltzer put it out there into the ether. Quote, AEW is in talks with Punk about the future, but right now it looks doubtful he will be back. Those with knowledge of the situation said they are in talks with Punk about a buyout of the remaining years of his contract, which tells you that they are not looking to bring him back. The holdup right now is said to be the non-compete period. Obviously, if there is a non-compete, it's an issue. It's an interest in going to WWE because there's no need for a non-compete otherwise, because there's no one else but AEW and WWE that can pay him close to what he's making. There are those in WWE who have been very negative towards him in the past, but it is a wrestling war, and the optics of looking publicly like they have been with Punk from AEW would be very significant. Triple H's whole game right now is about surprise debuts, and Punk would be the biggest possible for him to bring in for Impact. There's also some talks of WWE softening on CM Punk and maybe not being against bringing him in. That stuff is all, of course, floating around out there. There's a lot of stuff out here on the internet. Who knows whether it's true or not? We know that Tony Khan is not interested in having this conversation. We know that he doesn't really want to talk about it. And before we really get into it, I think that there was somebody on Twitter who said it best, that there probably is not that much conversation about non-competes. It's really mostly going to be an NDA. Whether he or AEW can speak on what occurred in any detail after the separation. That's likely what it's going to be. Let's talk about the non-compete really quickly. Just to get the idea out there. If you are willing to pay this guy an ungodly amount of money just to go away, do you really care if he goes to WWE? You know, you're paying for him. Like, these two organizations are not in direct competition like WCW and WWE was. Do you really care if he goes to WWE? I mean, if you're willing to pay him to go away, do you really care? And if you're CM Punk and you want out bad enough, do you really care? And you have no interest in going to WWE. Do you really care how long the non-compete is? You know, because Meltzer isn't wrong in so much as Punk only came back to wrestling for the money. He could have gone to work for Impact, or he could have gone to work for some other wrestling promotion. He could have bought a wrestling promotion for the money with the money he had. He could have done whatever he wanted. He could have went to New Japan if he wanted to. But instead, he chose to hold out until and there was a billionaire willing to give him tons of money to, join this wrestling company. So, I mean, if WWE really isn't an option, then CM Punk should just take the money and leave. Take the money and go. Get out of there. This is better for your own health. It's better for everybody's health if you get the hell out of there and you don't want to be there. If you're AEW and you really want this guy fucking gone, and that he's toxic in the locker room or whatever the hell, then whatever concessions he might want is not going to harm your company. Tell him to get the fuck on. I mean, remember when WWE, when he signed with AEW, there's a lot of people like, CM Punk is their problem now, and a lot of the fans were like, they're so ignorant. They don't understand that, He was the secret ingredient. He was what, everybody wanted to see. And not to rub that in their faces or anything like that, but WWE was like that already. Now I'm guessing they're trying to pawn all of that on Vince. And now it's going to be, Triple H is going to be the guy. He's going to come through and he's going to make everything okay again. It's like, I don't know. Considering he had some very harsh critiques and hard words to say about Triple H, and Triple H was the guy he didn't want to work with when he left. So it's not looking very good that this guy is going to, come back to AEW. And to be quite honest, it's probably in the best interest of everybody involved if he doesn't come back. It's legitimately better for everybody. And it seems like they are preparing for him to not come back with the re-signing of Jericho and Moxley to these new deals that are longer and that give them extra responsibilities like working with talent and being an executive producer and creative and all this kind of stuff, all this power that Tony Khan is starting to give away now. Something tells me that maybe this was stuff CM Punk was doing. And now he's basically just pushing it on Moxley or pushing it on Jericho as an admission that he needs help in these situations. But I don't get why a non-disclosure or a non-compete would be an issue. I mean, if CM Punk doesn't want to go work for WWE, they could give him a 10-year non-compete. He's not going anywhere. The guy's, 46? 47? Or something like that. He's an older guy. This was, he's not going to jump ship and, he could make, he's 43. I'm sorry. All right. So if you give him a year-long non-compete, which is pretty ridiculous, he'll be 44, WWE could do a lot in a year. Maybe in a year they don't even want him. But who knows? I think Tony Khan is more interested in playing defense right now, which is not smart. You should always be looking to make your team better. Not if a guy is a toxic in your locker room, and you can't trade him because this is not what wrestling is. You can't just call WWE and say, hey, can we take Seth Rollins and you take CM Punk? That's not how this works. Well, I'm pretty sure you could if you wanted to, I guess. But nobody's going to do that. So we're in a situation where you're stuck with the guy. You're not going to get anything more out of him. So fucking release him. Cut him. Let him go. They've already fired Ace Steel, and I think Ace Steel leaving was sort of the Silver Surfer to the Galactus of CM Punk leaving. Them get rid of the Ace Steel. If Punk were to stay there, he would still be bitter about that. He would be pissed that they fired his friend. So 9 times out of 10, yeah, Punk is probably on his way out. I'm going to, even though I do take Meltzer with a grain of salt, always take Meltzer with a grain of salt. I'm going to look into this as, it could be possibly true. I'd say it's like a good 60 to 70% likelihood that this is true. And that he just doesn't want to come back. But they've also got a lot of time in terms of his injury. Maybe somebody is saying right now he doesn't want to be there. So he's not showing up to anything or whatever. And maybe after his injury is healed, they'll talk again. Who knows? But we're operating off the idea that CM Punk is done. So that has led to a lot of people talking about his legacy and what that 1 year of AEW has meant to them as a fan. But it's also led to a lot of people with some vitriol against CM Punk finally coming out and saying how they feel about CM Punk, which is absolutely hilarious. And we're definitely going to get into that right now. All right, let's start it right out of the box. CM Punk was the main reason for the SMARK / work rate / indie era we are suffering today. Now the SMART, work rate, indie run business turned on him and doesn't want him anymore. WWE or AEW. I don't ever want to hear a SMARK whine about old school WWF or WCW. Never like this. Guys jump ship between WCW and WWE all the time, but it wasn't the SMARK audience. And this is a pretty good point. That CM Punk, it started in 2005. The idea that this guy who most people didn't know existed was the most over guy on the show, should be the star of the show, and he's being held back because the company doesn't understand him and all this kind of stuff because he doesn't have the stereotypical WWE look. He did start that, and he started the whole, I don't look the way that these guys are supposed to look. I'm not supposed to be here. The shit that Danielson did, that Kevin Owens did, that Bailey for some reason was doing. That shit, the indie work rate person who stands up to the WWE machine, he started that dumb shit. And that it is true that is the case. But I wouldn't blame him for it. I blame whoever hired him. Like whoever gave him the job. I forget who signed him. But I blame them for the CM Punk situation. And I blame people for continuously feeding into it. WWE's fed into it for like 10 years. They kept bringing those guys in. NXT was 90% of those guys. 90% work rate guys from Ring of Honor and PWG and shit like that. I mean, it is what it is. It just is what it is. Let's see, another one. This man killed his own run in AEW and potentially his resurgence as a performer altogether. And yet, I'm going to have to see the Elite ran CM Punk out of wrestling allegations for the next 2 decades. There is something to be said. There is something to be said about that. But the Elite are the institution. When you are, technically he is an outsider and you're bumping heads with the institution is probably going to win. CM Punk with his corner office or whatever, he was not a cornerstone of AEW. Like I said, I've talked about this shit, ad nauseum. But when you talk about the head bumping between him and the Young Bucks, no matter what you think of the Young Bucks personally, they are one of the reasons why AEW even has a fan base, why people even come to those fucking shows. It's because they finally got to see the Young Bucks on prime time in the United States. See what Meltzer has been talking about all this time. They got to see it in a time zone where things make sense and they're not sleep deprived at 4 a.m. watching New Japan World or anything like that. So it was part of the thing that got AEW started. And you can't cut the heart of the company out, at least not right now. You can't do it right now. They're still too young as a promotion to get rid of Kenny and the Bucks. You just can't do it yet. But it is interesting. It is interesting that CM Punk is now going to be, he got run out by the Elite, because that's not entirely true either. He ran himself out, to be quite honest. His inability to contain his own frustrations and angers and his desire to blow up in public all the time is what led to this. You got to have some decorum, man. Got to have some decorum. CM Punk's AEW tenure might come crashing down, but I'll never downplay the excellence of his run. The match catalog, the promos, and the stories he told with so many people. Lightning in a bottle. Okay, he has some pretty good matches, sure. A lot of these matches, like 90% of them, are cold matches. Where did, CM Punk versus Daniel Garcia, where did that lead? There's a literal picture that has all of these matches on it. CM Punk and Lee Moriarty led nowhere. CM Punk versus Matt Sydal led nowhere. CM Punk versus Powerhouse Hobbs led nowhere. CM Punk versus Wardlow led nowhere. CM Punk versus Matt Caster led nowhere. CM Punk versus Dax Harwood led nowhere. CM Punk versus Dustin Rhodes led nowhere. CM Punk versus John Silver led nowhere. CM Punk versus Penta Oscuro led nowhere. Now, some of the main event pay-per-view matches, yeah, those were pay-per-view matches. They probably had storylines behind them, except the Darby Allin match, because they did nothing for Darby Allin, and he ends up crawling on his belly today in order to stay over. A lot of people are going to focus on. I'm my opinion. He had some good matches. He had some great segments. He did some really fantastic stuff with MJF. That was the money right there, and Eddie Kingston. Those two things I think were above and beyond what I expected from CM Punk and AEW. He did a really good job there. He did drop the ball on other things as far as not elevating a lot of the other talent that he was working with, but he did an amazing job with MJF. He feuded with MJF for pretty much the better part of a year. The better part of his entire run was him working with MJF. And if that's all he ever did, that was enough, because he was only there a year. Okay, so he did a lot of stuff with MJF, and that's going to be the legacy of CM Punk and AEW is the stuff that he did with MJF. Because I think the stuff with Hangman began right after that. And that was sort of some of the issues. So let's talk more. Here's an interesting one. I can acknowledge that CM Punk's AEW run was fantastic on screen, while also acknowledging that I think the company is better off without him going forward. This is a blue check mark who works for Fightful. Wow. I don't know if the company is better off without him, considering they spent a whole year pitching him wildly to the networks as one of their top guys and somebody who's going to be there for a long time, and a guy who was a game changer, a legitimate game changer, not one of those LOL Athena game changers, not one of those LOL Kylan King game changers, not one of those LOL Andrade El Idolo, look at me game changers, like a legitimate pay-per-view main event guy who moves tickets and is a big star in a big market. That somebody you will actually tell the network, hey, I worked really, really hard in making this deal. I'm serious about this. I'm investing in this roster. Yeah, I don't know if the company's better off without him. I don't think you could go back to Warner Brothers and tell them like one of the biggest stars you ever had is now not on the roster anymore. How do you do that in your new negotiations for a new contract? Oh, you managed to, piss off 4 of your top superstars, 3 of which are working together. So, they're going to utilize their power. You've already lost Cody. Now you're going to lose Punk. Like, if you're Warner Brothers, you're probably going to be like, okay, what do we, out of all these guys that you pitched us that, we know you're using their WWE profile to push this thing, but you lost Cody. They were doing business with Cody. You lost him. Punk was a big investment in the roster. Now he's going to be gone. You're going to be looking at people who are going to be looking at you kind of funny. I don't know if the company is better off without him. I think that, getting rid of him was probably for the best. But buying out his contract or whatever is probably for the best because he's not good for that locker room. But I don't think that it's, quote, good for the company for him to be gone. Because now there's going to be a lot of people who are going to say, no CM Punk, no watch. And it's different from them never having been there in the first place, from them watching it, deciding they're not watching it without Punk, and then leaving. And there's going to be also people who are CM Punk fans who take his side in this situation and are going to say, it's incredibly unfair. And fuck these guys that, CM Punk had to get kicked out, so I'm not watching this anymore. So that's a different thing. All right. If CM Punk doesn't come back to AEW, that's 1 year run is an all-time classic run. He came in, worked with a wide range of people, cut epic promos, and had some great matches. In a few years, I think it'll even be more impressive that he did it all in 1 year. Like, what? People are calling it a generational run. Oh, boy. They landed on kind of thick. Here's one. To be clear, I love CM Punk's limited AEW run, great at times as a performer, but what he did at the scrum and afterwards taints his legacy in ways. Total selfish act. Buried co-workers, put the company in a bad spot, made his boss look like a complete idiot that night. Again, this does not diminish the good he did, but it's very hard for me to overlook the bad because it vindicates stuff said about him in the past. Always thought he was a good dude, but man, if most of the locker room hates you, that's on you. A WWE run would be hilarious. And I hate to admit it, but it's a big blow losing a guy who was a big focus when healthy on TV. There's no easily replacing Punk. You have to elevate others and hope for the best now. That was 3 tweets in a row, by the way. There was no way that he got all of that in one tweet. But looking at the position and what he's saying, CM Punk is known to be selfish, and people said that. I mean, the thing is, there was this WWE reputation. WWE, they just make fun of everybody. They put out negative stories about people. They did it about, Keith Lee. They made up all these stories about him being difficult to deal with and him not being dedicated to losing weight and all this kind of stuff. And he shows up in AEW bigger than ever with a bad attitude continuously, even online. That kind of stuff. They say so-and-so is an asshole, but they do that to everybody. And then people don't believe it. Then they go to Impact and be an asshole. And then people just kind of, they were triggered. But this is the biggest one yet. Because this is one where, for years, WWE kept being asked about CM Punk. People continued to chant CM Punk in the arenas. Everybody wanted CM Punk back. They finally got CM Punk back. And the CM Punk chant stopped in WWE arenas. They started in AEW arenas. And then they started to slowly but surely die away. Now you don't get CM Punk chants anywhere. I think that's an interesting thing too. Now the CM Punk chants are gone. Maybe as a sign of rebellion, they'll get more CM Punk chants in the future, but those chants are gone now. So they kind of blew their load. Here's an interesting one. CM Punk is a genius. Went to AEW, realized it was shit, got the fuck out, all while raising his profile. There is more interest in him now than before his AEW run. His next move has the potential to be huge, especially if it's with a company that actually knows how to draw money. Well, look, brother, there's only one option. It's not like he's going to go to Impact. And do what? Impact couldn't afford to have Punk on the roster for free. He could probably say, look, all you got to do is buy me some muffins. And Scott D'Amore would be like, brother, it's not in the budget. For Christ's sake. We're still searching for ways to pay for the charisma transplant for Josh Alexander. Here's another one. CM Punk really ruined his AEW run, huh? Like, I know Tony is punching the air right now. He brings back a mega star who has been clamored for 7 years. And like a year into his run, he's going to pay him out of his contract and Punk is going to retire again. I don't know about CM Punk being a megastar. Let's not go that far. Yeah, I don't know about the megastar thing. When I think of megastars, I think The Rock. I think Hulk Hogan. I don't know about, CM Punk. I don't know about that. Here's an interesting one. People pretending all that wrestling for no reason, knowing Punk would never lose to 99% of his opponents is laughable. His promos as a Spectre are mostly great, but his run was mostly downs with 3 exceptions. Eddie Kingston, I'm guessing, MJF, and Hangman. All of which are great without Punk. Sure, but those guys being in the ring with somebody like Punk really raised their value. I know that people tend to overestimate their favorites. I know I do too. But none of those guys are on Punk's level. It just is what it is. They're all better off having worked with him. And should be thankful that they worked with him. But it's unfortunate that we're kind of stuck with what we're stuck with, though. Here's an interesting one. CM Punk's most memorable part in his AEW run was the MJF feud. A feud MJF carried practically completely. The rest was seeing a dude that had obvious ring rust absolutely wreck and go over the same people that built the company he was getting millions to compete in. Ooh-wee. Wow. All right, he continues. This same person continues. What CM Punk match in AEW was really memorable? Maybe the dog collar, maybe because of the stipulation and because MJF had been constructing most of the emotional investment and interest of the feud up to that point. I don't know, man. I loved AEW from the beginning, and I haven't watched practically at all since All Out. And CM Punk's behavior single-handedly achieved that. Also destroyed my whole perception of a childhood hero. So I really wish he just stayed retired or whatever. I'm telling you, this guy has to be like 12. He's 24. Jesus Christ. Oh my God. What the hell? Man-child. Permanent, like, suspended animation. Man-child. I don't know, man. I don't think one person could make me stop watching wrestling. You know, like when I stopped watching wrestling for a while, it was a combination of things. It wasn't one person. You know, one person has never made or broke a wrestling show for me. You know, I just never been that kind of fan. I've never been that kind of guy. Some people are saying that CM Punk's run was like Hogan and TNA. Oh, come on. Let's not do that, okay? He didn't have a Hall of Fame ring that he gave to somebody and said, I believe in you, brother. And then that guy had to go around defending that Hall of Fame ring from Ric Flair, who said he didn't earn it, he didn't deserve it. And they had to roll around the thumbtacks and stuff like that. That didn't happen. Come on. Don't do that. Don't do that. Oh, man, this one's good. Punk's AEW run was a solid 7.7. Some good moments. Some good matches. Didn't live up to the expectations. CM Punk is James Harden on the Nets. I have no idea who James Harden is. But I did see somebody show Joe Montana playing for the Chiefs, and that's perfect. That's actually what Jericho is doing right now. That's how I feel about Jericho. That's Tom Brady on the Tampa Bay Bucks right now. You know, he's still Tom Brady. You know, we're going to respect him. He's going to win some championships. He's going to win some games. But it ain't the crew. It ain't the team. You know, it's a different system. You know, some of his flaws are starting to show. Age starting to creep in. So, I don't know who James Harden is, but I can understand that it's an athlete who's probably mostly played for one team. And it's Jordan on the Wizards. You know, that's what Jericho's doing right now. CM Punk, is he, Joe Montana playing for the Chiefs? I don't think he's Joe Montana. So, no, I don't. So I don't know. I'll leave all that to Jericho. I felt the same way when Kurt Angle was in TNA. It was a Joe Montana and the Chiefs situation, but then he ended up being in TNA longer than he was in WWE. So technically he became a TNA guy. Somebody been listening to Eric Bischoff. This guy said, this has to be one of the biggest flops in wrestling. He was overhyped, overrated, and overpaid. I don't believe in you can be overpaid. I don't believe in that. I don't believe you can be underpaid either. I just believe you agreed to the payment. You were underpaid if you were not paid what you agreed to. You were overpaid if you were paid more than you were agreed to. So that's my thing. But I don't know. Is it one of the biggest flops in wrestling? That's the Bischoff position, and there's things about it that I agree with, but I think in all honesty, he did the best that he could. It's just that he was never going to be that John Cena kind of guy, and a lot of people thought that he could be, but he could never be that guy. It's just. Not everybody can be the top guy. Not everybody can be in that spot. And that's something that a lot of people just don't seem to get. Sometimes people get blessed with that position because they can handle it, because they don't do stuff like what CM Punk did, because they can, handle things off camera without having to make it a big deal or, whatever. I mean, that's the that's the most damning thing to me when it comes to CM Punk and the brawl out scrum. Not that it even occurred, but how it shows a lack of maturity on his part, that he couldn't maintain that and keep that to himself. Like, even if you think that's what these guys are doing and they're, creating problems backstage, you should talk to them about it. Pull one of them to the side, pull them to the side one at a time. Like those dudes, they're three individuals. One of them has to go to the bathroom eventually, and he's going to go to the bathroom by himself. And you go in there and you talk to him. Hey, this is what I'm hearing. Is this you guys doing this? If so, stop doing that shit. But, it's poor leadership to go out in public and air this stuff out. And it just goes to show that he just was not that guy. And he was never going to be, And it's unfortunate, but I am not surprised at all. All right, let's see what we got here. I've legitimately seen this one more than once. CM Punk, please do not let them buy you out. Have TK let you and a group of AEW people run ROH. You should be almost healthy by January. Show the Bucks and Omega how to run a promotion. How not to put yourself over needlessly. Imagine the ratings war every week. Yeah, because I'm pretty sure CM Punk is jazzed about getting involved with the ratings war. I can tell you straight up, he probably would have loved to have bought Ring of Honor and been the owner of Ring of Honor, but it's too late. It's over. It's dead. The sad thing is, he was incredibly happy that Vince didn't get it. He was just so excited that Vince didn't get it. Now he doesn't like TK, and now TK got it. And now he don't even have the access to it anymore, because once he leaves AEW, it's over. So it's real sad. But that would have been that can't even be the compromise, because Colt Cabana, it was moved to Ring of Honor. So that can't even be the compromise. And he was the one this whole shit was over. All this shit was over Colt Cabana, who was moved to Ring of Honor. So you can't even do that. That's so unfortunate. This one's hilarious. CM Punk is what caused me to stop watching AEW, because it turned into a piece of trash called All Punk Wrestling. That will be WRASSLING, I will have you note. And it hasn't recovered. If he does go to WWE, I imagine a lot of people will find other things, THINGS, to watch. I didn't see Punk's WWE run, but he was a snoozer in AEW. A snoozer. He was a snoozer. We were snoozing, bruh. We were snoozing hard, bruh. Oh, God. Jesus. Here is an actual good one. CM Punk buyout story makes no sense. Punk is still injured. Why would he take a buyout rather than just sit at home and get paid? And if AEW is concerned he might go to WWE, why would they buy him out at all? It's in both parties' interest to just continue with the current contract. It's not, because then CM Punk will still be obligated to AEW. He does not want those obligations. Probably not. Now, he would be able to sit at home and get paid because he is injured. I'm sure that will be factored in if he was to be bought out. But the point of the buyout is one or both of the parties don't want to work together anymore. That would be the point of the buyout, is to end the current contract so that he can go his own way and the company can go their own way. And then if there is some type of legal mumbo jumbo that they do have going on there, maybe there's a threat of a lawsuit. There clearly is no lawsuit, because then that would be public knowledge. It would have to be some kind of threat of a lawsuit that would be lingering over these situations. At that point, that would have to be sorted out and everything too. So this person continues, honestly, can someone explain to me why AEW would buy out CM Punk if they're worried about him going to WWE? They could just not buy him out and they have no issue there. Yes, but then you still have a very disgruntled CM Punk under contract who probably wants out of his contract. At that point, and that's why I'm thinking maybe it's CM Punk who wants to be bought out of his contract and wants to leave. Because, again, Ace Steel was fired. Nobody from the Bucks side was fired. And I think all of their friends got their jobs back, or have come off of suspension so far. So we're looking at a situation where one of the parties doesn't want to work with the other party. I think it's safe to say CM Punk is the one who wants out. The only way for him to get out is for him to get bought out. And he's going to have to make some concessions in order for that to happen. But sitting at home and getting paid, but staying under contract there's something weird about that. Now, if he has no interest in wrestling, then maybe. Then you might be looking at a Sasha Banks situation where, Sasha Banks is still doing a bunch of other things, but she's still under WWE contract, because she hasn't formally been released. I know Raj Giri says otherwise, but until she pops up in another wrestling company, she hasn't been formally released without WWE permission. She likely hasn't been formally released yet. But you may be able to get a wider range of, I do what I want. I don't have to show up to TV and all that kind of stuff. But there's also that big thing called a contract. You don't want them yanking on that contract. And also, I think his contract had an option on it where, the option could be like, I think those trap doors that are on these AEW contracts where, they come up, you ain't talked to TK in 2 years. All of a sudden you got a year-long extension on your contract automatically because he forgot you existed, aka the Brian Cage clause. Forgot that motherfucker was still under contract, and all of a sudden you're getting renewed. Like, what? So you don't want that situation. You want to try to get out of this as quickly as possible. And if you don't have any interest in going back, then yeah, you just accept the buyout. And the buyout probably won't be the maximum amount of money he possibly could make. It'll probably be whatever his downside guarantee is, plus a little bit more. And just to go away. It's going to be a golden parachute just to get out of this situation. It's probably better for everybody if he does get bought out, rather than him sitting at home. Because him sitting at home means he evaporates into thin air and he, becomes less interesting the longer he sits at home. So the tweet continues, hey, this guy is injured, but we want to make sure he doesn't show up on another wrestling show. Now we have him under contract for a while, so they shouldn't keep him away from, hey, I have a solution, buy out the deal and end the contract. Or you could have him sign that non-compete that he won't sign up for 6 months, 8 months, or whatever. And then he'll still have his freedom. He can still do whatever he wants, but he can't jump ship to WWE. But considering, I'm not entirely sure WWE is in the CM Punk marketplace. It's just, I don't know. A lot of that, we're concerned about him jumping ship to WWE. A lot of that stuff really, really, really assumes WWE is interested in CM Punk, which, they had some years there where they could have done something if they wanted to. Now, can Triple H and CM Punk coexist? I'm pretty sure they could now because, Triple H isn't a wrestler anymore. But then what about the rest of that locker room? Again, there's still people in the locker room who were rubbed the wrong way by CM Punk. Again, Cody's in that locker room. Roman's in that locker room. There's guys who, weren't big fans of CM Punk at the time. So you got to think about that too. You really got to think about that. But those are good points. That's a really good point. Here's another interesting one. He fucked up his legacy with his actions with everything that happened, in my opinion. I was a CM Punk fan when he was in the WWE, and I thought it was cool that he returned to wrestling in AEW. But that's where it ends with me. For me, he just wasn't the same person once the bell rang. Well, he was fucking 7 years older. He hadn't been in the ring. Don't make me defend Phil. Don't make me do that. Look, He's not the same person at 42 that he was at, what was it, 35 when he left. Now, yes, that was his own fault, but still, it is what it is. If CM Punk wants to ruin his legacy even more by going to WWE and losing to people like The Miz and Logan Paul for his remaining years, AEW should let him do just that. Who cares? Well, yeah, that's a good question, but I don't think he would even do that. It's wild how CM Punk torched his legacy and reputation within 1 year. Well, considering WWE told you 7 years ago he was a fucking headache, the only people who believed CM Punk had a good legacy were the marks. There have been talking of like the whole stuff with him and Kevin Owens. That shit has been on the internet for years. The whole him and Kevin Owens got into an argument in the Ring of Honor. That shit years old. That shit like 10 years old. That shit old as hell. That's an old ass story, man. So I don't know about that one, bruh. All right, so that's kind of been the wide range of. A lot of people are saying it was a great 1 year run for CM Punk. Some people are like really mad at him and attacking him. Some people are in the denial stage where they're like, no, he could possibly come back. I mean, why would he leave? This is the perfect place for him, and why would he leave? It's like, well, look, I'm pretty sure when he came up with his perfect wrestling promotion, shitheads like the Young Bucks weren't in it. So assholes like Kenny Omega wasn't in it. People who have no power, despite having all the money, like Tony Khan, were not in it. So I will say this in closing: if this is the end for CM Punk, he did the best that he could. I think he shook off some ring rust. He had some pretty big matches, but it's mostly going to be the MJF thing that he's going to be mostly known for. And and using AEW as a platform for his fucking politics and stuff like that. So I don't like Phil, not a big fan of him, but this is a huge blow to AEW, and I understand why the fan base is reacting the way that they have been. This is a guy they worshipped. They worshipped CM Punk, and it ended up blowing up in his face. It's like no, I'm not going to do an anime metaphor on this one. Because there's an anime metaphor for everything. But it was unfortunate. But what do you guys think? Like, share, subscribe. What is CM Punk's AEW legacy? Let me know in the comment section below. And I'll talk to you guys later.